We've got the FW Arms 9mm sizing die with the dynamic spring hold down add-on. So what I figured I would do in this video is show you some 9mm case processing and show you how this die works. Let's get to it. Hey there, Kyle Shields from UltimateReloader.com. Previously, when we used the Frankfurt Arsenal X10, we were loading subsonic 308, and that was a lot of fun to load for because I really like those rounds. They're just a lot of fun to shoot, even though some people might not think it doesn't make a lot of sense in a 308, and it kind of doesn't, but I don't care. They're still really fun. And that's when I was showing you guys the Frankfurt Arsenal lock rings that we had used on this X10 here. So what I did first was do the caliber changeover and really, ironically, get it back to 9mm. So it's quite a process, but if you know all the steps and just take your time, it really doesn't take that long. It could take an hour, maybe 2 hours, depending. Typically here, it takes me a little longer because I have to film everything, so it really does slow down the setup. But overall, it's a pretty intuitive setup. So what did I do to change over the caliber? First, I removed the dies. Then I removed the powder measure, which you see is still missing here. Since we're only going to be focusing on case processing this go around, we will be doing a fully featured full loading from empty cartridge to loaded round spat out at the end. That's in the future, so stay tuned from that. Then I removed the tool head. Then I changed the priming system. And then I changed the shell plate. This is shell plate number 0, which is for a 9mm. Then I swapped the swaging pin and the priming pin. And right now the priming pin is pretty much inert. It's disabled. It's sitting so low that it's not going to be protruding up into our cases since we're not going to be using it this go around. Then I swapped the case feed parts over here. I also swapped the case feed bowl to the 9mm size, and I changed all of the locator buttons around the base here. So what does our die station setup look like? So on station number 1, we got our case feed. Station number 2 is empty. Station number 3, we got our FW Arms 9mm sizing die and decapper. Station number 4, we got our FW Arms dynamic hold down die, the micro version, for swaging. So, yep. Station number 5 is empty, and all the rest of the stations are also empty. So it's a pretty simple operation. I will be going more detail and swapping these around and showing you the full setup of these dies. So first, let's just show you this configuration, what it's like, and let's get to it. All right, let's do some case processing. I will note I've already lubed these. I just used Hornady One Shot. Will over FW Arms recommends that you use case lube. Even though this is a carbide full-length sizing die, it's still recommended to use case lube just because that makes the whole operation a lot smoother. So let's just get to it and check this out. Very smooth so far, I will say. All right, so as you can see, you can really slam through some 9mm case processing really quickly, especially with that case lube. There's hardly any hiccups. Everything's running really smoothly. So what I want to do next is show you the dynamic spring hold down add-on for the full-length sizing die, which we will be swapping it over to the swage station, which is very interesting. Let's take a look at that next. Changing your FW Arms sizing die to a hold down die is relatively straightforward. So here's what the sizing die looks like by itself as it comes out of the box. It does include 2 decapper rods. One of them is the standard size, which I've been using, and the other is a smaller diameter decapping rod. So what you'll do is take off the cap here, which is the adjustment for the decapper popper. So just unscrew this all the way. And inside, on the top, there will be a little spring here, so be sure not to lose that. I'm just going to set this aside with the cap. And then out will come your current decapping rod that's inside the die there. And so for the rest of this, I'm going to jump over to the press, and we'll need to uninstall our current setup here. So let's go ahead and do that. So it's pretty typical of any press die deinstall. So we're just going to remove our current FW Arm sizing die. Put that aside, and our hold down. And again, we're pretty much swapping these, sort of. The only difference is we're going to be using a separate decap die next. So I will go ahead and install that in our station 3 here. And I'm going to grab a piece of brass and adjust this the right way. So let's get this all the way down until we hear a nice pop or feel it. Sometimes you don't always hear it. About right there, satisfying, isn't it? And let's just give it a little bit more of a turn there. So we are now set up to decap our 9mm. And I'm just going to set that one aside. For our sizing die, that is now going to be a hold down, which is over our swage station. We need to set it up like we would the normal setup for the FW Arms sizing die. So what you do is, it's very similar to any die setup really. Let's go ahead and lower this all the way down and keep on screwing down until we touch the shell plate. And when we do that, we will back it off about 1/8 of a turn. So just a little bit. And this is where you would adjust your decapper popper adjustment if you were doing that. But in this case, since we're not doing that, we're just going to leave it about right there. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Okay, now to install our hold down. I'm going to go ahead and place the spacer that we use. It's the absolute 0 position spacer for setting up the hold down. We're just going to lower this all the way like so. And first we're going to put on the nut that's included for the hold down die. About like that. And then the spacer that's included with the hold down die. And now we have the hold down spring die itself, or add-on, excuse me, itself. And with this, you do want to be careful because these threads are pretty fine, so you don't want to be cross-threading anything, so just go easy at first. In this case, it feels really nice. And we're going to keep turning until we feel pretty stiff resistance against our button, our absolute 0 position. So about right there. And then now we can bring our nut all the way up. You're going to want a 1/4 hex key and your standard 1-inch wrench for tightening things down, and just give this a cinch. And let's remove our button. Let's just cycle that. So here we are. Let's just check our operation real quick. All right, so to make this setup easier, I went ahead and disabled case feed. So let's get case feed going and I'll show you how this works. All right, I've got my case feed station all filled up now, and let's see how this works with essentially a reverse setup. So remember, we had sizing on station 3, now we have a decap, and instead we have our sizing on station 4. So it's not only sizing, but it's swaging, sizing at the same time, which is really, really interesting. So let's give this a go. I'm gonna try to keep the same speed as I did last time, and so far, everything is just as smooth. Yeah, this is running really, really, really well. All right, overall, I'm really satisfied with this. So next, let's just talk about some of the features of the FW sizing die. Let's talk specs and features. What are the features of this FW Arms full-length sizing die? So it features a DLC, which is a diamond-like coating, which means that it's harder and that there's less friction. The Coke bottle effect is virtually eliminated. The carbide ring inside is retained, so it's not glued, meaning it will not pull out, which we did experience with the case processing that we did with 223 with some of the other dies. And you know, it's been fixed now, but it can be an issue if you're running things at high speed or with no lube. So you can use it with a hold down, which is kind of neat. The fact that you can use your sizing die as a hold down, I personally haven't heard of this before, so that's a pretty interesting concept there. I kind of like it actually after using this. And using lube, case lube, is still strongly recommended. In talking with Will at FW Arms, he uses lube even with carbide dies. So he strongly recommends that you use case lube no matter what. It just makes the whole operation a lot smoother and a lot better overall. And from my experience, from processing this brass here, definitely. There was no hang-ups. Everything ran really smooth, just like butter, how I like it. So what are the features of the add-on? So the dynamic spring hold down add-on. Well, you can free up a station. So if you don't have a 10-station press like this one, it may be vital that you want to use a hold down but don't have a spot for it because maybe you want to keep your taper crimp separate, for example, or something like that. It allows you to have one less die in a station, and you don't need a dedicated hold down. So it's pretty interesting to use. In this case, it might not make a lot of sense to use a sizing die on your swaging operation, but you can. It gives you an option. It's more of like a why not thing. So that's a brief overview of all the features of this sizing die. So in conclusion, I really do like this sizing die. From what I've used it so far, it's really smooth, really nice to use, high quality as per usual of FW Arms stuff. And when I was on the call with Will at FW Arms, I said, hey man, I really do like your stuff because it's practical, it's well made, and what it's doing really well. So we've used his other products before in the past. They're just really well made, really practical, and I'm all for that. So what's next with the Frankford Arsenal X10 and the sizing dies? Well, what we'll be doing is instead of just case processing, we'll be going the full circle. So we'll have case feed with, brass coming in that is not swaged, it needs decapped, all that fun stuff, and basically spitting out a loaded round. So what do you think of these FW Arms 9mm sizing dies? Have you had a chance to try them yet? And if not, which other dies are you using in your progressive press setup? Let me know. And until next time, I will see you all later.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, where we've got unrestricted content, and Instagram. Make sure to follow us on all those channels. Ultimate Reloader also has a commercial solutions division serving law enforcement, the military, and the gun industry. We have some unique capabilities, including a comprehensive suite of recoil testing and evaluation capabilities, trigger profiling, and more. Thanks again for watching.